Welcome back, Flyers nitty-gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, welcome back for another episode, buddy. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, Yariv. Middle of the week, we're almost to the weekend, so that's always a good thing. Also, just hockey-wise, interesting stuff going on surrounding the Flyers lately. Undefeated the last two games, so lots to talk about, and we got a great guest, so it's going to be a fun one. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you. Trying to get over this cold. Another man who's been fighting a cold, and obviously you know him well, Jason Myrtetus, from pretty much everything Flyers. And if you will follow the Flyers, you definitely know who he is. Welcome back to the show, Jason. Thanks for coming on, man.
No problem. Good to come on after what was a pretty good couple of games for him. So very happy with what I've seen in the last two.
Yeah, I mean, last time you were on here, we didn't have a lot of positive stuff to talk about. Now I feel like, yeah. Now we got there's some sunshine, and that's what this podcast loves to talk about the most. So I'm excited to get right back into it. Let's get into it. I mean, let's get right into. I guess let's go into the recent streak here, but let's go back one game quick, and let's just talk about the Sens and the Flyers, kind of. Going into Claude Giroux's new home, coming out with a 2-1 win in a game that was, I would say, relatively even. But, at the end, obviously, the Flyers kind of holding on to that 2-1 lead, as kind of shots were being flirted at them, but not as out of control as the other games. Jason, we'll go to you first on this one. What did you think? What did you think about that win against, Claude Giroux and the Sens, who, they've been they're on paper, they're a pretty good team, but they haven't necessarily put it all together quite yet at this point.
Yeah, I think they're trying to figure it out. And I agree with you. They do have some really good players. And, in that game, like 3 seconds in, it felt like Giroux had a great scoring chance and just didn't connect. And then at 2:44, he did connect and picked up his 300th goal. But then after that, the Sens had some pushback moments in the game, but I never felt like they were really, really high danger stuff. I thought the Flyers did a good job keeping them to the outside and not letting them really get great scoring chances. And then they just found a way in that game. That's kind of like the prototypical game of the way they're going to have to win most games this year. Like they beat St. Louis 5-1. That's going to be the rarity, I think, because them scoring 5 goals, I think you'll be able to count that on one hand, how many times they'll do that this year. But, the Sens game, to me, that I really loved the second period of the game. And the reason why I liked it so much was they had to kill off 4 Sens power plays on the road. And then they come away with the only goal of the period. I just thought it was a really resilient period. And, when you do that, you set yourself up for a third where you can choke them out. And that's what they did. So, the game is all about momentum and swings in momentum and capturing it, keeping it, getting it back when you lose it. And not all shifts are created equal. And I thought the really kind of certain points in the game, certain shifts are really important. And I thought they played those better than the Sens did. So, there's certain times of a game after you kill off a penalty or after the opposition kills off one from you. That next shift, I think, is really important to then grab the tone of the game. And I thought the Flyers played the important shifts better than the Sens played in that game. And I think that carried over into the Blues game, too.
I think that was really well said. Vasily, you want to add?
Yeah, just to jump off, I think you're spot on, Jason, with what you were saying. There's just a lot of shifts that can, change momentum in a game. And I think last season's Flyers, maybe would have broken in those situations and not played those momentum changing shifts the certain way they've been doing, but they've been doing a better job of really managing that this season, not letting, that one mistake or let's say one missed coverage or something like that kind of spiral out and then just become their whole period. And then, as you mentioned as well, just the special teams were really great in that game, especially the penalty kill with the 5 killed penalties in the second period, and then they get a goal shortly after. Then also, just them getting kind of into the forecheck game, being able to establish some shifts of offensive zone time and sustain pressure. within Ottawa's zone, because the prior 2 games against the Leafs and the Rangers, that was few and far between with some extended zone shifts in their end. So I think that's obviously a key for the Flyers, right? Trying to develop a forecheck. With that forecheck, you tire a team down. You can frustrate them and then create your scoring chances. I mean, you saw some good shifts from Frost, Blasinski, and Delorier, and then as well with Kate, Sedlak, and McEwen. And McEwen gets rewarded with a nice goal for his hard work, and he's been working hard as well. And obviously, the main story, and we can point to it for a lot of wins this season, is Carter Hart. And I think there's just only so much you could say about his play. He's been spectacular with his movements, great with the rebound control, really good cutting down angles, and I mean that came to the forefront against Ottawa for sure. And I mean, as long as he keeps playing that same way, the Flyers are going to be competitive in a lot of games. When your goalie's only really giving up about 2 goals a game, you got a good shot of staying in a lot of games.
Yeah, I think the thing is, though, I don't know that it's sustainable. And
yeah,
I mean, he's got a 950
save
percentage. I mean, it's absurd, right? For a team that gives up a lot and defends a ton, he's been incredible. And the crazy thing about him, Vasili, this year is he's defied two elements of goaltending that are not ideal. One is giving up the first goal, and one is giving up a goal that you want back.
Yeah.
And in 6 of his 8 games, he's given up a goal that I know he's been angry about. And one where you go, yeah, that's one he probably should save, whether it goes through him or the one that kind of goes over, the skate on the RVH when he's got the skate on the post, the one that goes under the ankle break of his pad because he pushed into the post a little too hard into his integration. And there's been, in 6 of 8 games, a goal that he let in that he wouldn't like, but it hasn't affected him moving forward in the game. His mental game is at a different level, and he's always been strong mentally. And he's worked with John Stevenson since he was 12 and always been ahead of the curve for somebody his age. But I think that he's at a different level now. And I remember talking to him at the beginning of last offseason, and this wasn't on the show or anything like that. We were just kind of shooting the shit at the end of the season. And I said, what are you going to do now? These 2 years are done. You got to park it. And he said, I'm going out to California. I'm going to play tennis. I'm going to play golf. I'm going to hang out with friends. And I'm parking it. And I don't know where he parked it, if he parked it by the Venice Pier, parked it Santa Monica, or left it at LAX. I don't know. But he left it there because he didn't bring any of that shit from the last 2 years with him this year. Yeah. He lost the luggage. You know what I mean? And his ability now, a goalie is always you always say and try and convince yourself that, okay, I let that one in. Let me move on. Let me reset. And you go through these different things. We all have different, things that we do to try and mentally reset, whether it's a ritual, talking to the post, looking at a saying that you've written inside your block, or whatever it is, right? But a lot of times you're just convincing yourself that you're resetting. You're not truly resetting. When you get to the point where you can truly reset, and I compare it to meditation. Everything I read about meditation is the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the better you get at it, the more you get out of it. So it's like a meditative kind of thing to be able to end it, go, I let the bad goal in, let me move forward and worry about the next one. And he's just done an amazing job this year with that.
Absolutely.
It's been, to me, that's been the biggest difference in his game.
I think it's so important.
Movements. Yeah.
As a goalie, right? Because once you're, just you let that bad goal kind of linger in your mind, and then it just piles up on you, right? And
then you let another bad one in.
Yeah, exactly. And he's mentioned it in the past where, even in past seasons, like, I just need to move forward and one goal at a time. And you're saying all those things, but you're not seeing it on the ice. Versus, I think that's where what you were kind of saying comes into play, Jason, where something must have clicked for him, or it's just all coming together.
Maturity.
in terms of his mental game. Absolutely. And then he's able to put that stuff past him, and then you see it as clear as day this season, because like you said, there's been a lot of goals he'd like to have back, and then he goes on and posts either shutouts after those goals or like a 970 save percentage. So just shows
you give up a goal early and one you don't like, and then you shut the door for the remaining 50 54 minutes of a game. Like, that's crazy.
It could spiral on a lot of goalies. So
yeah, I remember when I was working at Providence College Hockey School in the 80s, and Tom Barrasso was up there after his rookie year in the NHL. He had a great rookie year. And he was talking to the goalies and the goalie coaches. And we were all just like kind of talking. And he said that, he goes, if you can't park it when you let in a bad goal, the self-fulfilling prophecy is there. Yeah. If you can't, you'll know if you're able to or not. Because if you let in another bad goal, you didn't park it. You let that goal affect you. And if you can shake it off and go forward and play really well the rest of the game, I'm not saying not give up a goal. But he's like, if you can park it, you can then get back to the business of your job. And your job is simple as a goalie. Stop all the shots you're supposed to stop and make some saves that you're not supposed to make.
Right. Yeah.
That's to me, that's goaltending in a nutshell, baseline right there. And if you can do that, even if you let in a bad goal, that the new mantra becomes the rest of the way, I got to save everything I'm supposed to stop. And I got to make some saves that I'm not supposed to make. And if you do that, then you've perfected it.
Yeah, and I think your metaphor that you use towards meditation, I think, is absolutely correct. It's why Carter Hart does that whole water thing, right? It's the refocus. And if anybody here has ever practiced meditation, like, the idea is that you can't actually get your brain to stop thinking. So when an idea comes in, you have to kind of forgive yourself, allow that idea to pass. And it's kind of just like, allow that goal to pass and focus on the next shift.
Accept and move on.
Exactly. So that maturity is definitely there. I just want to add in what you're saying. I think it's very interesting a little bit the way John Tortorella has kind of handled this. Something I noticed from the very beginning. There was never a single question from the day one that Tortorella showed up here if Carter Hart was the starter. He said he was a starter publicly. He made it very clear. Like, I know it makes sense, right? The other guys are unknown, but he never said, we have a bunch of young guys. We'll see. He said, no. Carter Hart is the number one guy, and the other guys are battling for backup. And he says very clearly, and again, I don't know from the outside, but he says, I don't do that. Like, I don't have conversations with Hart about his saves and stuff. I let the coaches deal with that. Like, he very much understands the mind game that a goalie's going through. And I think that's part of the benefit is, I think, kind of just staying out of Carter Hart's way, letting him. Look, I was there when he was 19. I'm there, a little bit now when he's older. You can see his demeanor's changing. The way he carries himself, like, let him work it out rather than getting involved. I think there's something there to that as well. Do you see any of that, Jason?
Totally. That's part of the evolution at Torts. Realize, like, he used to want to control every element of the game. And he knows that goaltending is evolving at a warp speed because it's the cat and mouse game with goaltenders and shooters. So it's constantly changing. The shooters are trying to exploit what you're doing to give yourself an advantage, and you're constantly changing. It's like pitching and hitting in baseball in a lot of ways. So Torts eventually realized, I'm not the expert on the latest save selection or the way he should play anything below the hash marks on the outside. I don't know that stuff. I don't know that numbers. I can't worry about it. I can't get caught up in the minutia of all of that. The position has its own coach for a reason. So let me let Dilly handle that. Yep. I'll handle the mental aspect of it. And I want competition for ice time in my lineup everywhere but that spot. Because he knows there's only one crease. Like, even those other guys are competing for minutes, but in a game, they all play. Mm-hmm. A goalie, there's only one crease to get into. So as you're coming up, it's hard because you don't get to get into every game like a forward or a skater or a defenseman. You just sit there. And when you get in, you got to do your job. And it's not easy. So, I thought that was interesting too, because, Dilly has such a good relationship with him that, use that. Let that keep going. And then you coach the mind. And he loves his work habits and all that. We all know the way Carter prepares.
Yeah.
It's second to none.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really smart approach by Torts.
Yeah, and we compare that to at least what I hear from the outside, right, about what happened with AV and Carter and the statement that he made about Carter publicly and how that seemed to snowball into something.
I think that was the end of AV.
Right, exactly. You see what I mean? It's like
that was the end.
It was like
you call it a young goalie like that. when you call it a young goalie like that, it's gonna rattle feathers, right? Especially with some veterans on the team as well. I'm sure there's a lot of players that probably weren't fans of the statement.
The players were like, wait a minute, dude. Like, we know this kid.
That's
not talking
accurate.
about.
Exactly.
It was like you're making an example of you're barking up the wrong tree here.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I had a guy, somebody from that goalie room that would text me and be like, what is he talking about?
Right.
That's
how I reacted.
The guy's no longer. Yeah, the guy's not with the organization anymore, but he was one of the goalies in their system and in their ecosystem. And I was like, I don't know. I don't get it. And he's like, I don't either. And I know Carter's like, what the hell? That guy works. He prepares. He's been
doing it for a while. He's been preparing like a pro since junior, right? Like, look at those stats and is playing the WHL. So the ethic, the work ethic, all that stuff, that's never been a problem or a question for Hart. I think it's just you're coming in as a young goalie. It's a very hard league to navigate. Most goalies aren't coming into the league until about 24, 25, and he came in at 19. So it's just, I mean, there's going to be struggles when you come in that early. I think he's kind of navigated through those, and now we're kind of seeing, the Carter Hart that's slowly entering his prime here.
Yeah, I agree. I think he still has a little bit of a ways to go, but damn, he's been so good. He's just been I've been so impressed with the way he's played and the way he's dealt with the situation, and he's gotten a little bit of an improved environment. I think there's been a little bit more predictability in an environment, even though they've given up a lot of shots. You guys know I don't care about shot volume. I don't. Quality. I think it's harder to be a goalie that faces 23 shots a game than it is to face 36. I think 36 is much easier for a goalie, and that seems counterintuitive. Like, I get it.
You want to touch the puck though when you're in net, right? Like, personally, like, as somebody who's played, if you're not getting a lot of touches, sometimes it can unravel for you quick. So
it's hard to stay connected to the game if you're not feeling the puck. And when you see 36 shots, they're not all high danger chances. Like you always tell your guys that are playing in front of you, if there's a shot from like out of the blue line or something, don't try and block that one or anything.
Yeah, let me have it.
Just let me have it, because it just makes me feel bigger and I feel more connected to the game. And there is a psychological thing with shot totals for goalies too. Like Vasili, you played the position, this, that if you're playing a game, I don't give a shit what level you play at. If they're keeping shots on the game and they're on the scoreboard and you make 2 saves and they only count it as 1 shot, you're pissed.
Pretty much.
You are.
Exactly.
There's been times when I've been playing in games. I remember growing up and playing at all different levels where I would make a save and they'd put the shot on the wrong guys, on the wrong teams.
On the wrong shot counter.
They put it on the home guy, and I'd be like, whoa. I mean, I would go over to the table when in between periods, be like, dude, you missed 4 that period.
Yeah, my save percentage is going down here. Come on.
If you're going to, I'll say it to them all the time. If you're going to keep them, just be accurate. That's all I ask. If you're not going to be accurate, don't even keep them, because you're just fucking with my head.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It all goes back to that head game.
Yep. And you are competing with the guy at the other end.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You want to outplay the other goalie and give your team a better chance to win, obviously. So
and I totally agree. I think absolutely towards the system is allowing him to excel 100%. And I think this is what happens. I think I believe he is on track to be a franchise goaltender. That's how I see him. I think he still has work to do. I still see him as a young player, but I see nothing but sky's the limit for the guy.
He's got the tools. He's got the tools. I mean, but
it requires the right environment. So
yeah, exactly. It's a big thing
for team success. Yeah,
it's a big thing too. With goalies, just like the way they keep themselves in terms of calmness on the ice. Like, he's so calm, very reminiscent of Carey Price. I think that's a very good sign going forward. And then just to cap off with the Hart stuff, I mean, he is second in the league in save percentage with the 946, just behind.
That's crazy. It's only second.
Jake Ottinger's 952. So that's crazy. He's having a great start as well. Another great young goalie.
Yep. Yep. Gotta love it. Let's talk about the next game, actually, because we'll get it right into the other goalie. So Flyers the next night, a couple nights later, beat the Flues 5-1 in a pretty much, we can say, some degree dominating win, at least in comparison to some of their other games. Is maybe the best game that, at least from they had from a predictability standpoint, where it never seemed like it was even close. Felix Sandstrom gets his first win as a Flyer. I wouldn't say this is the only game he played well. I don't believe those losses are because of him. I think he's had some goals he'd like to have back. I don't think he's had perfect performances, but I definitely think he's been an adequate backup, and I think he earned that win. And I think it's really nice to see where, a lot of times you can kind of say, hey, well, the Flyers had Carter Hart kind of help them win there. Yeah, it was a struggling team, but they didn't, they won like a good team. They came out and they did what they were supposed to do. They didn't just squeak by or barely get by. They played like the better team, which is a really good sign. Jason, I'll start with you again. Let's go back to the goalie if you want to start with Sandstrom and work our way out. But what do you think about Sandstrom? What do you think about the 5-1 win and Sandstrom finally getting his first?
I think the microcosm of the game was very early in that one between the Flyers and the Blues. And, the Blues are coming in. They've lost 7 straight. They're off to a really crappy start, right?
Yep.
And they're on a back-to-back where they lost the night before 3-1 against Boston. And sometimes a team like that can be dangerous, but they are fragile. So they came in and they really wanted to establish some energy early. And you knew that they were going to want to do that. And I thought it was really interesting that Braden Shen decided to drop the gloves with Nick Seeler. And I thought it was the right move for Shen until one thing.
Fired up,
to give his team some energy. And Shenner can chuck him a bit. He's a big, strong kid.
Yeah.
Right? The only problem was he got this fucking lunch handed to him by Seeler. Seeler beat the brakes off of him. And I was like, well, that backfired. Because Seeler was just throwing. Shen was never able to tie up his right arm, and he just beat the crap out of him. And then later, somebody went, I forget who it was that went with McEwen. And
it was Bortuzzo.
Yeah. And that was short, but McEwen tagged him a couple times. And I'm like, oh, this team's thin right now. And you could see every board battle in the game, the Flyers were winning it. Every race to a puck, they were hesitating, the Blues. And they just looked really fragile in the game. And I thought the Flyers just grabbed it and said, you know what? There's blood in the water. We can sense it. We're in great shape physically to be able to just force you into a pace that you don't want to play. And the Flyers are not a fast team by any stretch. But I thought they played really fast in that game because they knew that was the way to just drain them of anything that they had. And I thought the goalie was good. Sandstrom, again, I think in his starts, he's made some really good high-end saves.
Mm-hmm.
And his his post play is fantastic. But there was a couple of goals, like the Florida game, the one that kind of eked under his glove for the 4th goal. Flyers ended up losing 4-3. They scored with like 2 seconds left, but to make it a 1-goal game. But there was always just one goal that was like, okay, not getting back up onto his edges on pucks that came on low to high plays when he should have regained his edges, and he got beat up high as a result of that. And you got to realize, like, hey, this is the NHL. You got to regain your edges there, because if you don't, they will roast you high, and they have. So hopefully learn from that. But I thought he was good in the game. I thought it was good for him to go in a not back-to-back situation, which is disadvantageous for the backup. And, it's hard to be a backup goalie. I think it's one of the least understood, hardest jobs in sports, because especially for a young guy that hasn't played a bunch in the NHL, like he's trying to assimilate to the NHL. He's not playing a lot. So you can't catch a wave and ride it as a goalie. And, when you're playing every 4, 5, 6 games and in disadvantageous positions, that's really hard to do. So I think it was good to get him into that one, get the win. I talked to him after the game, and I couldn't have wiped the smile off his face with a baseball bat. And I talked to him. I asked him, Felix, sometimes you think you're never going to get this. You're never going to get the NHL win, a win at this level. And look, you were going to go back to Sweden this summer. He signed a contract to go home, and then he ended up signing the 2-year extension with the Flyers, and the Fedotov situation, the way it played out. And to what I was talking about before, there's only one net. So, like, getting into a game in the NHL and winning one, like, you never there's obviously self-doubt. The guy was drafted in 2015. Am I ever going to get this opportunity? And then you get a bunch of chances, and you're back-to-back, so the team wasn't good last year, and you don't find the win. Now you get the result. And he was elated. He's a really well-liked guy. because he's so chill, like Swedish, cool, and laid back. And I was happy as shit for him because he's worked really hard. And I know there was doubt that crept in over the last couple of years for him that he was ever going to get the opportunity to do it. And he got a win. And I think now he can put that behind him and just move forward. And I think that's a great thing for him.
Yeah, he was great.
And the other kid too, by the way, Urson, they really like this kid.
Oh,
Urson, he needs to play, but
Urson, I think for sure is an NHL goaltender.
Totally agree.
I think in Sandstrom's case, a highly athletic, at least what I've observed, and again, I'm not a goalie, but a highly athletic goalie. His problem, I think, always been a little bit more in the past, I would say, than what I've seen now. It's kind of just positional play and some of the foundations. It gets a little wild in net in comparison to the other guys, but still highly athletic. And if he can put it all together, I don't see why he can't be an NHL goaltender as well, to some capacity.
I think for Sandy, it's a little different because, and it will be for Urson too, because neither of them have played a ton in North America on small ice.
Yeah, you got to assimilate to the small ice. Exactly.
It's a big adjustment in two areas. One is mental engagement when the puck's in your zone, because it can come to the net at any time. Think about this.
Distance.
The rink is 15 feet wider on each side. It's 30 feet wider.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I think like 1,800 square feet of a bigger surface of ice.
Yeah, there's more east-west. So you're focused on different plays versus, the North American style where people might be jamming pucks at you, screen tip plays. The east-west
traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the other big one is traffic. I remember reading an article, an interview that Varlamov did after the lockout back in 2013. He went over and played in the KHL, and he said it was a nightmare when he came back. This is a guy that already played in the NHL, had some success, went back over because of the lockout, and then came back and was like, I had to start all over with the North American game because of the traffic. It's just so much because they crowd the blue paint so much.
It's hard to track a puck through so many people versus, in Europe, they're not attacking the net that way, really.
They're all out here.
Yeah, they're setting up plays in a different manner.
Yep.
Shots from the outside.
Yeah. So adjusting to that, I think is a big deal for a goalie. Not only that, but I mean, think about it. You played on that big ice your entire life. And I don't know if you guys have ever been out on the Olympic ice.
I have not
personally, no.
Oh my God. It's a freaking nightmare. You feel like you're playing in the Grand Canyon.
I could imagine it being in that, just thinking like, okay, so the one-timer's coming from over there.
It's so weird. Because your spatial awareness has been so condensed your whole life, then all of a sudden you're playing on this big ice, and you're like,
your angles are off.
Is he in the zone or not? Yeah, because the circles are further away from the boards. I played on one time. I'm playing on Olympic ice that they also had freaking curling circles all over it. So four things of curling circles. So my eyes are just like tripped out. I'm like, where's the circle? Because all your markings are off, and it was so bizarre. I'm like, never again.
Oh man, I can't wish that on anybody. I'd probably let a lot of 5-hole goals in doing that.
Yeah, it was dizzying.
Well, it honestly, it's good perspective though for a lot of people who, because I would say most of us who have even played hockey probably weren't goalies. You got to be a special person to want to be a goalie. I always say,
an idiot.
You got to be a little bit crazy to want to be in net and have pucks or balls fired at you on a regular basis.
It's always fun to get a puck to the head. No worries.
Admirable.
That's why I retired. That's why I just recently retired.
Yeah,
enough pucks to the head.
Yeah.
I made it to 50. I was like, I wanted to make it to 50 because my hips are bad. I got to get them redone and all that. And then I played one game after I turned 50, and I caught one like right in the mouth area, like right there in that middle bar.
Rattles you, man.
Like you can see, like all the that bar's bent. They're all bent and stuff. Like you can see, because at my height, like that one's got a really good bend in it too. But at my height, at 5'7", my head's always in the danger zone.
Yeah.
So I took that one. It wasn't even that hard, like right in the mouth area, but it caught me square. And usually if it catches you like on glance, all the energy dissipates through the mask.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
When it catches you square, it wasn't even that hard of a shot. It just caught me. And I mean, I could smell the sulfur. I was messed up for about 9 days. And I'm like, you know what? I'm 50. I'm on the
not worth it anymore.
Yeah, I'm like, enough's enough already. What am I doing here?
Honestly, though, respect. I mean, you hold on to it. I mean,
I'll be lucky if I get to play in a 50.
Yeah, no, I was the same. Most people wouldn't even do it till 50. So
Yeah, I mean, awesome. Like the playing part wasn't bad for me. Like the actual game part, it was the next day that was tough.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard when you're going down and up when you're playing that like that. Like, all the joints don't feel the best.
Yeah, and I had to relearn how to play because it's so different now. Like when I grew up in the 80s, we were wearing leather pads stuffed with deer hair.
Yeah, the butterfly wasn't really a thing. All that.
Yeah. So, the hips, learning how to play the position in a modern form was fun to learn, but
hard on the hips.
Takes its toll on the hips really bad.
100%. 100%. Well, it's always skating.
Yeah.
I coach, so like I'm on the ice, so that's good enough.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And you talk.
Yeah, I'm just out there blowing the whistle and yelling at them.
Yeah, that works. So let's finish up about this 5-1 win. So the Flyers essentially probably get their best win of the year so far, at least from a dominance standpoint. Looking pretty good. I guess let's talk about the kind of the other elephant in the room. Really was Ristolainen, right? So Ristolainen obviously he's benched the previous game, sits out of the lineup. Tortorella, comes out publicly, pretty blunt like he always is, saying that he just not playing defense, just not playing well, and he's got to play better. And I think there have been times where he's done really good things. I think this season, missing some time, whatever it is, learning a new system, falling back into bad habits. And I think we're seeing, Tortorella again establish the same standard he had for everybody else. You don't play hockey. He gets beat bad. You've seen some shifts where you're just like, what are you doing? And he just doesn't mess around. He pulls him immediately, but then gives him a moment of redemption, which I find very interesting. He does that almost every single time, unless there's a justifiable reason, like Bellows, who is kind of new to the team. But same thing with the goalies. He like, while he does, maybe criticize, he always gives an opportunity for redemption. And I noticed that with Risto, and I think Risto had a pretty good game. Again, only played 17 minutes. He's playing kind of lower end what Braun is playing per night. They're both playing about 17 minutes a night. But I still think a +2, getting back on the ice, having a pretty strong game, having some really good blocks, the right hits, and not making egregious mistakes. I think those are the right stepping stones to kind of getting back in the lineup and getting in the right cadence with the coach and the play, and a way to
the expectation.
And not only that, Ristolainen I think is better than people want to believe, but it's the process and the attention to detail for all of these guys that is going to separate them from being average to good. And I think Risto falls into that category like everybody else. Jason, we'll start with you again. What do you think about Risto, his response, and just kind of the current situation or anything with the game?
The one shift he had the 2 block shots on, and the first of those 2 was a surefire goal had he not blocked it. It was a great block. Yeah, in the first period. That game could have turned on its ear at that point, because all of a sudden St. Louis started to feel pretty good. So that was a great play. I thought there was one where he really, had one of his bad moments where he just played way too aggressively outside the dots on his own entry. And I thought he was going to kill a guy when he did it. Now, I will tell you that every player on St. Louis saw that run he took. He didn't catch him solid, had he? The guy would have been he might have just spontaneously combusted on the ice because of how big and strong and how hard Risto was coming at him. So even though he didn't make the play on that particular one and he didn't cost them in their own zone, there is an effect on the other team on that too. Like, oh boy, he's flying out there a little bit. You got to really pay attention when he's out there and get your head up, or else you could meet that freight train without knowing it's coming. So I think that Risto, with a new coaching staff, is trying to figure out what he needs to be with this coaching staff. And I think that Brad Shaw is going to be really good for him. Because he's a guy who'll explain a lot, show him a lot situationally, and he's very much like Torts in the sense that he's very transparent and does not take a day off from criticizing you when you make mistakes. And Risto needs that. So
yes,
I think just his play outside the dots sometimes is just overly aggressive.
Yeah,
trying to use this physicality. If he can just pull back a little bit outside the dots, I think he'd be fine. But
I agree.
There's going to be a process there. Playing outside the dots is really, when Zamula has struggled this year, where's it been? Outside the dots.
Yeah.
Especially on zone entries. Like Phil Myers, he had that one good year. He came back the next year. Dude was just constantly outside the dots, giving up the middle. It's like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want to give up the middle on a rush attempt. Let him go wide. Let him. That's fine. Stay out there all day. But Phil just insisted on closing off the outside and giving up the middle. And it was like, that's to the point where they were like, we got to move on from the dude. He's just not getting it. Risto's got to be able to play inside the dots more and use that stick and his physicality as a net front guy to defend, that area 4 feet around the net. And I think that Shaw will be good for him. They got a lot tied into him, obviously. So got to get it right, which is why I think that Torts pulled him as quick as he did, had him sit for a game. And, it's the Frankenstein. It's like you got to rebuild the guy a little bit. I think you still have to wash some of the Buffalo stink off him.
Yeah.
It takes a while, man. I always say it's like when he came here, it's like a guy who works in a car garage and works on engines all day and greasy stuff. And at the end of the workday, like you look at a mechanic's hands, right? There's grease under the nails. It's everywhere. That mechanic just doesn't go to the bath and wash his hands and like go home and like, oh, look, clean hands.
Right.
No. You got to get out the lava soap and the little brush, and you got to scrub the crap out of your hands to get all that Buffalo stink off you.
It's hard to get the habits, right? Like once you establish them in your game, it's hard to get them out. And I think with Ristolainen, that's kind of what it is, and maybe what Tortorella and Shaw are looking to do, right? They see certain elements that they really like, but then they also see certain elements that they don't like, and it's trying to remove those elements or at least get him to kind of draw back on them. And I think that's where it comes with playing outside of the dots, where there's certain plays he can make outside of the dots where, like you're saying, he takes a run at a guy and it can be a real positive and kind of acts like a warning sign. And he can also kill a play by doing that. But then there's more often than not where he's running around too much and it's opening up, space for the other teams.
He gets on the wrong side of the puck when he does that.
Yeah, exactly, right. I think they really just want him to see him kill those plays more when he is being aggressive. And I think that's where Shaw kind of comes in because he's known to be a really good defensive coach. Hopefully some tactics and strategies kind of that, he can employ with him will help him there. And also just different ways of maybe defending in zone that he's not usually accustomed to with those years in Buffalo. Like you have to remember, he's 28 years old, so he's not a younger player by any means, but he's still around those prime years. And he's really never had a coach for more than one season. He's had like 8 different coaches. So
8, try like 16.
Yeah, even more.
I'm not even kidding. Yeah, because of interns and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In the air.
It's bananas. So he's constantly message changing, and like some of that's
hard for a player.
And like that stink on his hands that I talked about, like the mechanic. Look, part of that stink was here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Some bad habits.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No, I think it's why it's so important that Tortorella is doing what he's doing and that he's doing to. I really like what you said, Jason Myrtetus, or Jason. I don't know why I said your whole name. I really like what you said there, because ultimately, there's this kind of big thing here where, like, okay, you're 25 years old, you're 26 years old, you're 27. Okay, you're done. You are what you are. You're done. I don't really buy in any of that stuff. I don't really
tell
believe
Brad
in
Marchand that.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many examples, and especially with professional athletes that are counter to that. So look at somebody like Risto, and I love what you said. Like, he hasn't really had any of that structure. When has he ever been benched for making mistakes? I think that definitely didn't happen in Buffalo. So there's the foundation, that trigger in the back of your mind that stops you from making that extra play, that extra move to get you out of position, that over aggression. There's no consequence there for not just for him, for a lot of guys. And I think that is what is being established there. And it's okay, I did those mistakes. Now I lose an entire game. So like, they're like, I knew not to do that. I did it. So it's in the back of their mind now to pay attention to that attention to detail. And somebody like Risto, I don't really think confidence is an issue for him. Like, I don't really think it's like, this is a guy that can go through all these coaches and be like, yeah, I'm not that good at hockey. I really don't see that being his thing. I see it more of like, well, I know what works. I was drafted, top 10 player. I've been a top defenseman everywhere. I'm physical. I'm mean. People are scared of me on the ice. Why do I have to change? And there's been no good coach to really show him that. I think this is the first time we actually have a team. I haven't seen the Flyers this focused on the attention to detail and the team defense since Ken Hitchcock, since I was a kid. I know for sure I've not seen him play defense. It's been years since this has been an organized team. And to force that, I think you can start getting the best of everybody. I expect Risto to respond the way he did. You know what I mean? I would expect they all respond better after being benched. Like, why are you pouting? You made a mistake. You should know. Go ahead.
I agree. Yeah. There's an interesting quote from Ristolainen actually from practice today. He said, Tortorella's lack of fear, exactly what you said, Jason, to bench veterans is how it should be. If they're not playing up to standard, they should sit. He also added in he appreciates how honest Tortorella and the staff have been with him about what he needs to improve on certain things. And I think a lot of players, they'll tell you, it can be a tough conversation or a tough interaction when Tortorella is coming at you and being honest about certain things that he wants you to improve. But I would imagine that a player would rather get the honesty and somebody telling them to their face on exactly what he's looking for, or maybe why you're getting benched, or why, you're telling me that I need to do things this way, versus mixed messaging. Because I think a lot of that might have been happening in the past, and especially with certain younger players, I think in the current day NHL, mixed messaging just isn't something that's going to really work too well. I think you got to really spell it out for some guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was talking about this today. We did a broadcasters roundtable, and there's something I mentioned today. I mentioned this on the broadcast during the Blues game. I think the most interesting dynamic of this team going forward this year is how guys are going to respond to their moment. And every guy on that team's going to have the moment. So don't be one of those teammates that goes, hey, you got benched. Ha, ha, ha. Because you're coming. Your turn's coming. Exactly. I don't know if it's benching you for a period. I don't know if it's benching you for a power play or a penalty kill, or it's putting you upstairs eating popcorn in the press box. But everybody's going to get it. There's no doubt about it. Yep. Everybody's going to get it because you're going to have slip in your game at some point. And Torts is not the kind of guy who goes, hey, Shawsy, he's slipping. Let's just turn her back and not worry about it. No, he don't work that way. No, he does not work that way. And when he sees some slip, you're going to know about it, and there's going to be an effect. How guys react to it. I love the way that Travis Konechny has reacted.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal.
Hayes, too. They handled it very differently, I will tell you. I won't tell you exactly how, because I won't violate the information that I have, but each player handled it in a very different way, but I love the way they've both responded. And okay, so let's take a look at some of the other guys. Risto, we just talked about, who was benched. Wade Allison. Risto basically said, I need you to play north. Not even north-south, just north. Because if you play east-west, you're going to east-west your way right out of the lineup.
Love that quote.
I was playing 6 minutes.
Yep. Top six.
Last night?
He had 17 minutes? 18?
Yeah.
Something like that.
One of his best games.
First period, it's 7 minutes. 7.5 minutes.
7 hits last night.
Yep. 5 in the first period.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the goal.
Yeah. Look at Morgan Frost. He didn't come back pouting.
No,
he would have been a prime candidate for pouting, right? He came back, played on the fourth line, worked his ass off.
One of his best
was out
games.
There for that McEwen goal. Yep. Yeah, I agree. One of his best games. And maybe the notion of, hey, Frost has to play with skilled players because they're the only guys who can think like him. I don't know about that anymore. Look at the other guys that have been, sat down. They've all responded the right way because he forces you to look in the mirror. It's not about what he's saying. It's the fact that he's holding a mirror in front of you and not letting you tell yourself that you're playing better than you are.
No excuses.
And the fact that he does it to everybody is the big difference.
Because everybody
the fact
needs
that
to
the
hear
first two to sit were Hayes and Konechny in a third period in the game that they were still in. That was a message to them.
But a message to everyone as well.
That's a message to everybody in the organization. If those two can sit, our two leading point guys, after playing 23 minutes for TK the night before, 21 for Hayes against Nashville, and then you sit for the entire third period. First of all, it's embarrassing for the player. And second of all, how are you going to respond to it?
Yeah.
I think everybody's responded well. Not everybody's going to.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting.
No, I completely agree. And I was actually thinking about Morgan Frost today because I was thinking about his first game back. The response was fantastic. And you can't look at the game and go, oh, he was the best playmaker in that game. that is not why I think he even had a great game. He was just engaged in the game.
Yeah.
And shout out to Jim. We brought this up last time. He actually brought up a great comparison. This is Jim of High and Wide. He brought up a great comparison. He was compared to Claude Giroux and the skill set,
OHL numbers.
Yeah, but you look at the game, like have you ever seen a moment where did you ever see Morgan Frost throwing a body check into somebody going the other way and ripping a shot home? Like, he's never been aggressive. I'll say this. I don't have a chance to talk to Morgan Frost right now, but I almost guarantee that if Morgan Frost went out there next game and just for no reason got into a fight with another player, and I mean this honestly, just for no reason, just said F you to that guy, threw a stick into his shins, and started fighting a guy, Torts would play him extra. And I don't think it has anything to do with fighting. And I don't think it has to do with get engaged physically, get aggressive, fight for your space. That is the only thing Morgan is missing. And I think that's what he's trying to get out of him, which I think is why he's playing with Delorier. There's nobody on this team outside of maybe McEwen who does that better. Like, Delorier does not get intimidated by anybody, not even close. That's what Morgan Frost is missing. Just like Sanheim was missing a little bit of that, and we added with Risto. It's like, I think that's really all they're waiting for. It's not, hey, we need you to be the playmaker. It's, we want you to be assertive. Go fight. Go fight for your space. Go fight for your position in the lineup. Like, be angry. It's okay. It's okay to be angry and play with an edge. And I really think that that's what Morgan is missing. I think that's why kind of his criticism has been so public, because I think to some degree, maybe he wants him to be angry. Like, maybe
he wants him to be more aggressive, play with more of an edge. Play with more of an edge. And I think just Tortorella's strategies in general, and just him kind of challenging players. The Leaf game in the post game press conference. I mean, I got to get a couple questions in with Tortorella, and he was stating that it's about finding out who's a part of it, but also who's not a part of it. And I think mentioning things like that, and also just challenging guys to be their best, is bringing out the best of certain players. Because like you guys were saying, it's all about a look in the mirror type thing, right? There's always going to be certain games where you're not going to play up to your best in an 82 game regular season, right? There's just too many games. You're never going to be all on top of it at all times. But Tortorella, he's trying to build a foundation where he doesn't have to be the one to catch it. He wants guys to catch it themselves and be able to realize, okay, I'm not playing my best, but you know what? I know that, and I can get it to the next level in the next game, or I can turn around the next shift. And I think that's what Tortorella's ultimately trying to establish, is just the foundation and the structure within the team, and the identity of, okay, you know what? Even if we're not at our best, we're always striving to be the best in our game.
I think essentially. I agree with your point too. Like, hey, my hands aren't dialed in tonight, but let me contribute in another way.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Let me find a way to be a factor here tonight. Because you're right, you're not going to have your hands every night, or some night you're going to go down the ice and you're going, my freaking legs are dead. Like, I got nothing. Yeah. It's an 82 game season. It's a freaking grind. And it's why I think that a player like Travis Konechny has been so good this year. Now, we look at the numbers, the goals, the points, all of that. But to me, that's not why he's been as good as he has been this year. To me, the reason why Konechny has been the best player on the team outside of Carter Hart, and the most important player, is because he's doing everything harder.
Yeah.
And everything, and
the effort's really there for sure.
Yeah, and it's more consequential. Everything he's doing is more consequential on the ice.
You can see he's putting his all into everything versus, not to say he wasn't doing that in prior seasons, but it didn't come through as evidently as it is now anyways.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the word I'm looking for is the impact he's having at certain points in games. And sometimes it's on the penalty kill. Like, can you believe that I just said that?
I know, right?
Like, TK is impactful on the penalty kill, right? And he'll go through a game and he'll have 2 shots on goal, no points. But he was still the most impactful player because of his energy, because of the way he's playing, the way he skates, the skill, all of that stuff. I just think he's been really impactful. And it was kind of started the moment Giroux left. I think he was held back a little bit from a leadership position when Giroux was still here. Not because Giroux was here and you didn't want him to, just because the void wasn't there.
It's an all-time great player. He has a certain thing to take up. And I mean, as a player, you don't want to step on toes as well. So there's certain things that you're not going to want to pick up in your game. But like you see a guy like that move and there's a void and you think to yourself, well, okay, now it's up to me. It's
who's gonna fill it?
Exactly.
I'm grabbing part of it. I think it's really important that when it all does shake out, I think that he has a letter on his jersey.
I could see it for sure. Yeah.
He's been a leader everywhere he's been prior to the NHL.
Was a captain in junior, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And to me, he's a heartbeat of the team guy, and he's got natural born leadership abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that he has too is, as a player, I think he's a pleaser to a coach. Like, he wants to please the coach and do the right things and work hard and control those things you can control. And to me, he's just played some really impactful hockey this year.
Yeah.
And while I love the numbers, I love the speed, I love the skill, I love those impactful, important moments in games. And the fact that he's doing things impactful in an area that's not his sweet spot.
I agree. I think he's also too. He's bringing other guys on the team into the fight with him,
dragging them in. Big
yeah,
time.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Because he's being so aggressive, just with the way he's playing. I think that's ultimately the way Tortorella wants the team to play, with aggression. So you have a guy like that, kind of as a leader, leading your guys. Okay, follow me. This is how we're supposed to do it on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, just with Konechny, it's kind of crazy. I have an interesting stat here. He had a 2-point game last night. 6th multi-point game of the year for him in only 12 games, 14 points in 12 games. I thought that was interesting that he's just, making an impact that much, where he's already at 6 multi-point games. It's kind of crazy.
And he was benched in the third period.
Exactly.
That's why I think the guy's a pleaser. Like, I've talked to Torts about him quite a bit. And today's NHL, like we were talking before the Blues game with Torts, and about that line with Tip, him and Kevin Hayes, and how the NHL is no longer a stop and start league. Like, it was a stop start league for years, right? But the league is played so fast and with so much flow and 5-man unit now, it can't be stop start anymore. You have to always be moving. But TK's so good at maintaining momentum and tight turns to play in small areas in a non-stop start league. It's something that Hayes needs to work on. Like, Hayes turning is like a cruise ship taking a U-turn sometimes, right? And that's, and Hayes, you should never be playing a stop-start game because he's not explosive.
He's got to do a protect the puck game.
Yeah, but it constantly in motion. Just needs to get a little tighter with his turns and his routes sometimes. But TK can pivot on a dime, and I think the league, like, you look at the league now, look at the players that play that way. I mean, McDavid's easy to go to. I mean, that's absurd, but like Marner's and like players that can play.
Like a Keller.
Yeah, Clayton Keller's a perfect example of that. I think those guys are built for today's NHL of a non-stop start league. And I think TK is right there. Yeah. And this notion, that we came into the season with this notion of there's no talent here, they're going to be the worst team in Flyers history. I get it. Last 2 years were miserable and there's a recency bias, but let's face it, there's some good players here.
Yeah, of course.
They need high-end talent. There's no doubt about it. I mean, dude, as we're taping this, can you guys believe this? I mean, right now, there are 5 teams in the NHL. 5. That's it. Only 5 teams in the NHL with a higher points percentage than the Flyers. The Vegas Golden Knights, Boston Bruins, Devils, Winnipeg, Carolina. And then
I mean,
Flyers
half
are
of those teams. I mean, you say Winnipeg was counted out too at one point too, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about, like I said this on Flyers Daily the other day. What do the Islanders, the Maple Leafs, the Avalanche, the Lightning, the Panthers, the Oilers, the Rangers, and Calgary all have in common? They're all below the Flyers right now in points percentage.
Love it.
I'm not suggesting that the Flyers are a better team than any of those teams, because they're
still
not.
Fun to enjoy.
But, I mean, they need high-end talent, no doubt about it. And they're doing this without Couturier, without Atkinson, without Ellis.
It's also about finding out too. I think which one of these younger guys can we get one of them maybe to not be that high-end guy, but be a part of a team with those types of high-end guys, and potentially even be a part of that core. And that's like what you're looking for a Konechny, a Hart, a Provorov, all that stuff.
By the way, Owen Tippett,
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, so we'll do this our last topic because I know you're at a time crunch here, Jason. You went in Konechny perfect because I wanted to talk about literally his top line, but Konechny and Tippett exactly. I personally do think Tippett still has a chance to be a star player. I look at the age of 23. I look at when Voracek and a lot of these guys came over here, about where they were, about, 0.500, 0.50 or what's called half a point a game. So this is about that time where a lot of guys can explode. I don't know if it's going to be Tippett necessarily, but you look at what he's done of late, the shots, the ability to play the off wing. We had him on this podcast. We talked to him about him playing the off wing, and I love to see that he's being used there now. But just that line in general, with a TK, with a Hayes, with a Tippett, it has the right balance, but it looks like Tippett is onto something. He's explosive, and where he was missing the net last year, he's kind of hitting it. He's been aggressive, and he's also been really good at moving the puck, creating his own opportunities, stealing the puck, just being aggressive in the offensive zone. I think it's really been complimenting TK, and we saw them kind of do that work. That goal
the 2-on-2.
That 2-on-2. That
was coach's dream. The way they played it,
gorgeous. And I think it's a sign of things to come. So I'll go to you, Jason, and then obviously Vasili chime in. What do you think about Tippett and where he stands right now?
First of all, the 2-on-2 play. It was a precursor earlier in the game on a 2-on-2 where they kind of set up that 2-on-2 play that led to the goal. It tells me hockey IQ because Tippett's kind of in the middle of the ice, but he's on the right side. Konechny's coming down the left side. And he gives him the puck, but he doesn't just stand there and let Konechny try and cut in front of him. He gets rid of the puck, and then he just gets on his horse and drives the net, driving both defenders, sucking them down lower, and then having his defender go to the far post with him. And what he does is, when he does that, he gives Konechny a little bit more space to come in, make the higher percentage shot. And then because he and the defender cut across the goalie, like, look at my eyes. Two guys right across. Yeah. So what does Greiss have to do? He has to shade to the short side. Konechny knows what he's doing. This has been worked on. Right. Goes far side. It's wide open. There's no way Greiss has arms long enough to make the save. Yeah. It's just a great play of just getting rid of the puck and then going, even though I don't have the puck, I can affect this play even more. And he did. He opened the whole thing up. It's a beautiful play. As far as the line goes, you will not find, three players with a varied skill set like those three. They're all so different, but they work well together. And we know about the shot. The willingness has to be there to continue to take it because that's his game. Just don't think, rip. But he's a better passer than I thought he was. Yeah. Seeing that this year and what we saw last year. Yeah. And, being able to get the puck up the ice. I think that's number one. And then we saw it last year and we're seeing it again now that he's healthy this year. The ability to skate. The dude is a big frame guy. He can freaking skate, man.
Yep. He can move. Yeah, he's quick.
I was not expecting that.
He's always been a good skater, like in junior, stuff like that.
But NHL skater, right?
Oh, yeah. He's for a big boy like him. Sometimes you don't see big guys like that move the way he's doing. I think just his play is encouraging in general, right? I mean, you got him in the big trade for Giroux. You're obviously looking for him to make an impact. You can tell that, I mean, he's starting to gain more confidence in his game, and you're seeing even Tortorella use him more because you're seeing that as well. And I think a lot of it
likes him too.
Yeah, you can tell Tortorella likes him, and you can tell too, even Tortorella said, like, earlier in the year, you see him playing, you saw flashes where his game is very intriguing, which is true. There's a lot of intriguing parts, and if you can put it all together, you're like, wow, right? I think for him, you can see that he's engaged and he's very aggressive. And a key part to that is look at him on the back checks and getting back and playing defensively. Like he's doing all the things that Tortorella really wants. So you can tell he's bought into kind of what Tortorella's preaching. So that's the first sign that's really good for him, just for the fact that he's going to continue to most likely get that ice time because he's playing the way that he's supposed to for Torts. And then the main thing too that goes kind of coupled in with the skating there is he really with the zone entries, man, like he can really maneuver in, makes that move, and gets the Flyers into the zone. And they need guys that can do that because they're lacking that throughout the lineup. So he's important for them there. I think he's going to be a real important guy too on the power play. Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, Jason, he just needs to rip it, and the shot will do the rest for him.
Yeah, don't even think, just rip. Shoot now, apologize later. For him too. Torts in the beginning of the year said, "Be what you are." I think he's gotten some mixed messaging through his time at the NHL level from different guys, whether that was in Florida or whatever. But to me, he seems like a player who was unsure what he's supposed to be. And if he can just figure that out, and Torch said, just be what you are. You can get up and down the ice, do the things that I require, my non-negotiables from the red line to our net. But on that other end of the ice, be what you are. Be a shooter. Be a scorer. Be those things. Don't make me have to question. I'm not sure what you are. And if he can play to his identity and his strengths, which is that shot and his ability to move up and down the ice, I expect big things out of him. I really do. Like he's a guy last year that the way he skated and his burst really kind of shocked me.
You could see it in his game. Like, whoa, like there's something there, right?
Yeah, like you saw like plays in the neutral zone where there'd be a loose puck. And he would on it. He'd get right on it. I'm going, dude, I didn't know he could skate like that, like the burst, right? And then this year, there's one guy that I've had that same kind of epiphany with, like Tony DeAngelo. Sorry, man, my voice is I'm going to cough. But I watched DeAngelo with the Rangers. I watched DeAngelo last year with Carolina, and I've seen him a good amount. But I don't feel like I didn't have a grasp on a player more than DeAngelo to now seeing him every day.
Yeah.
Like I thought these things of DeAngelo. Yeah. Like I was like, yeah, he's good at this and blah, blah, blah. Right. But then now that I see him every day, I'm going, I did not have a good handle on what he is as a player.
He's really smart, man, on the ice. Just his reads. He knows where to be.
The way he plays with emotion too.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can literally see him feeding off his emotion. And I know Torts loves it.
That's why I was saying that about Frost. You look at DeAngelo, he doesn't get punished for losing control of his emotions.
Plays are made aggressively. Yep.
Yes. He's made some mistakes where I'm like, you got to tone it down a little bit. And, I'm okay with that. But you much rather have that fire, that energy, that I'm not going to back down from anyone.
I think that's what Torts wants.
Yes. That's the way this team has.
You guys in the meeting last night? Jesus. Torts said that exactly to us. He goes, I'd much rather have a guy that I got to rein in than a guy I got to get out the smelling salts to get him there. It's so much easier to pull a guy back than it is to push him into it. And
you can correct.
I won't say he was talking about, but yeah,
you can correct and dance around all those little errors, right? But if a guy's not engaged in the game, there's no way to get him there unless he wants to be there.
Well, here's the one element. We can end on this. Here's the one element I think it's always ignored because we play a lot of video games and we do a lot of virtual stuff nowadays. And I hear people talking about Risto, how like just because he hits people doesn't make him tougher. This is a very intimidating game. It's intimidating to walk into an NHL locker room, let alone play on an NHL ice and get hit by these guys and have them talk shit to you and to know what's wrong with you and to be able to get under your skin and to know if you're a bubble player and to be able to call you out on it. Like you have to have that edge yourself. You must come and bring fire and be able to fight. This is not a game for quite frankly, like easygoing people. It's not. They get eaten alive. Even if you are that way.
Fall away.
Exactly. That's why I think it's so important. I think that's why Frost has struggled to stay in the NHL. And I think any player who has struggled, a lot of times it's that inability to step up in the moments. And I don't judge because I actually understand it. And I understand how intimidating it is. That's why it's so crucial that they do that. And I hope that Frost and whoever else is not meeting that can recognize that. And I think that's partially why York also got sent down is, are you ready for that element?
Ready to be aggressive and push.
If you're upset because the coach is calling you out, what are you going to do when a guy's trying to punch you in the face and telling you you're terrible at hockey all night?
And then there's also a bunch of other guys in your organization that are trying to take your job.
Right.
Like this isn't, hey, let's go to practice and then we go to class anymore.
No. School's out.
Not. Exactly. This is a freaking living for these guys. And there are guys that, like Ronnie Addard is a driven dude.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's going to.
Why did he get a shot?
Yeah, because he's got great attitude and he's freaking fearless, right?
Yes.
I mean, he gets in there
and also fearless for his age.
Yeah, you gotta be. And, you want those guys that are willing to jump in there and do whatever it takes. And if I got to rein you in a little bit, that's fine. I'll rein you in.
Right.
I'm not here at this level to get you up.
Right.
You got to do that. If you can't do that, on with day.
It's the NHL, right? That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a great note to end on. Jason, we're gonna record a little bit longer after this. We have another segment that we'll finish up on, but I want to let you go. How can people follow you? I guess everybody sure already know who you are, but anything upcoming, anything you want to let people know about? I know you talked about the round table, which is awesome. I'll be listening to that as well. Anything else that you got coming out?
Yeah, I guess round table. I got to add that to my another podcast that I do. It's like 15 episodes a week now, I think.
Hey, total. I listen to them.
We're all listening, so no worries.
Jeez, I know. I think I like this time of year, I do 15 different podcast episodes a week. So obviously Flyers Daily every day. Then we're doing Stick to Hockey Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We just had Al Morgani on, who's going into the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday.
I was listening to that. His story, I didn't even recognize. Wow.
Yeah, the Pelly Lindbergh story.
Just everything that man has done and the amount of people he knows. I was like, he's like mentioning Herb Brooks. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
blowing my
awesome.
mind.
He's been in the game for a long time.
40 years. Cool. Yeah. And he doesn't look a day under 90, Al. So yeah, we have Stick to Hockey Live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's available on Apple and all that stuff too. And then the OGs podcast with Harry Mays that we do every Thursday, I believe now. Stick to F1, which is going to wrap up soon because we're getting to the end of the F1 season. But we got a Sao Paulo Grand Prix preview that we're going to be doing this weekend and wrapping that up in Abu Dhabi. So yeah, tons going on. Broadcasters Roundtable, Twitter, Jason Mert, all the usual crap, and that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jason. Really appreciate you coming on. And again, everybody make sure to follow Jason if you're not already and check out his content. And thank you again so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks, Jason.
All right. So now that Jason is gone, we'll finish here with one more topic, and then we'll do our comments. Vasili, the one topic we had that we didn't get to talk to Jason about just because we ran out of time was Ivan Provorov. This is one guy, we were talking about Tony DeAngelo a minute ago and how great he has been, and how welcome of addition he's been. And I mean, quite frankly, you can tell him, Sanheim, and Provorov right now are the staple of this defense. If you're talking about removing anybody, it is not one of those three. I'm sorry to everybody who keeps talking about one of them going. I mean, at this point, I imagine DeAngelo will get re-signed if he continues to play the way he's playing, and I would see no hesitation to it. But within all that, I think the one thing that people should not forget is what Ivan Provorov is doing. It's not just how he started this season. If you watch the way he played last game, he was absolutely dominant. There have been many games. Like I heard Jason talking about TK and Hart being the best players on the team. I think people are overlooking the fact that Provorov is probably the best player on this team, not TK. TK has been highly effective offensively. He's been night and day. Again, we talked about on this podcast, we talked about even a marginal increase would make him a star player, that he's already a top line player. So we're not surprised by that. And I'm not saying you completely agree with me, but the way I see what Ivan Provorov is doing, it's allowing DeAngelo to play this awesome game, which I am really liking. And now you're seeing Provorov without the power play out there. He does lead our team in minutes. It's just when the power play is out there, it's all DeAngelo, which makes sense.
Exactly. That's a specialty, right? So.
Yeah, but I think Provorov has been exceptional. He only has 6 assists on the year, but really it's 2 goals shy of DeAngelo.
You can't measure too everything that he brings with points just in his game. There's just so many different facets where he's like contributing on the ice.
I mean, just real quick. I mean, even the last assist that he had. I mean. He created that entire play that Allison finished.
Oh, yeah, it was great, right? They did the little give and go, him and Farabee. Yeah, actually, I wanted to jump off that. Thanks for bringing that up, Yariv. He had a great play in that game, and it kind of adds to the Flyers' strong second periods, which is crazy. I mean, their second periods last season were terrible. This season so far, they have a +10 goal differential in the second period, which is kind of night and day, right? Like they improved on that. And then Provorov's a real impact in that second period against the Blues. I mean, him and Farabee have a give and go at the blue line. Farabee passes it back down to Provorov. Provorov skates in, feeds it right over to Allison, causes a goal. So he's showing how he's impacting offensively, but just so many other areas of the ice, I think, where he is just if you're not really watching the small areas of the game, you might not notice him. But he's just doing so many little things in terms of like in zone defense coverage that it was missing a little bit last season because the rest of the guys just didn't have the structure that he's usually playing with. But now that there's a structure surrounding him, he can go ahead and be that guy and be who he needs to be. And that's the guy who, if a guy has a puck, I'm getting to him quick and I'm closing him out. But if the rest of my team around me isn't in the right positions, me doing that is going to cause open players, missed coverages. But if everybody's actually sticking to the system, which they're now doing, he has the ability to be able to make those types of plays that he's always been able to. It's just other teams were, they're capitalizing on it because the other players surrounding him weren't doing the correct things. So it's allowing him to kind of play more to his strength in that way. And then just the way him and D'Angelo are breaking the puck out, man. Like, they're doing a great job getting clean out of the zone. Obviously, it wasn't as clean to start the season, but that's kind of, I think, something to be expected. New pairing. They haven't played with each other before. It takes getting used to, right, how you're going to break out with the guy when there's certain like pressures and coverages coming in on you, because as a defenseman, you're always getting forecheck when you're breaking out like that, right? So you got to be able to handle it certain ways. So I mean, Provorov's been more and gone above, I think, anything you can really ask for him. And it's kind of hilarious because a lot of people were saying earlier in the off season, I don't know if he could be as good as Jacob Slavin, and I don't think he has a defensive game. I mean,
they're still saying people are still saying that now.
It looks like he's just as good, if not better, than
I've been
him.
saying it, dude. I've been saying
and the way he's been playing, and you know what?
Got a better skill set than Slavin. Sorry, he's not one of the best defensemen in the league. I don't believe you guys.
It's no surprise too that the PK is 8th in the league, and he's been playing so well because he's a major part of that. And just shutting down plays 100%. And the way he's boxing out, like, he's been really great. And then that whole pairing, D'Angelo and him, like, there were so many people that were unsure and didn't think it could work because they're two different players stylistically. But usually players that are different stylistically mesh well because they play off the differences in their game that the other might not be the best at. Where like you're saying, D'Angelo might be a little too over aggressive in certain situations, but Provorov makes up for that with his reads defensively and the way he closes guys out, right? Whereas Provorov might not be the best of outletting the puck or bringing up the ice all the time, but D'Angelo is his support for that aspect of the game. And they play off each other really well that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I'm still hearing that this defense is talentless. I keep hearing that. They're just, I don't know how they're doing it. It's like magic. It's like magic.
Props, you know what, man? Props to Nick Seeler. Like, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the guy or anything.
He's had a great season.
Yeah, he's
career year for him so far.
For his role, he's playing really great.
Did you see that pass he had yesterday?
Yeah, it was really, really good. And
on the tape.
And the thing is, too, if you don't think that it's Tortorella is having an impact on him because he believes in him and what he can do, it's helping his game. And it's really helping, I mean, a lot of this team's game. And that's something that we brought up earlier, that just the way Tortorella is employing certain strategies, he's bringing the group together, he's getting people to buy in, and he's making sure that you as a player are looking for the best within yourself. He doesn't have to bring it out of you. And Sealer's obviously one guy who's ascribing to that, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's really important to remember as we see this, guys, and we brought this up, even when the Flyers were still winning, before they lost a couple games, even, this is not going to be everything is sweet and hunky-dory every game, and we're never going to have we are going to hit a losing streak. It's going to happen. But I think what people need to understand, this is the beginning of getting better. This isn't, they are what they are. I don't know what people are
building a foundation. They're building a culture.
I want to point things out to you. Everybody who's saying that to you was also wrong about every single thing that they have said. They make a bunch of predictions. They are completely inaccurate. And then they keep finding circles to point out how is this possibly the thing, because it doesn't add up to the thing that we said that it was going to be. That's why Vasili and I said very clearly the entire time, we will see. Like, we've been saying that from the very beginning. Like, you know, when people can question whether we actually, it's on the episodes, right?
Yeah. This is the thing too, right? Like with analytics and the thing, like, it can be a useful tool. You can predict, you can do that, but at the end of the day, you got to watch and see what occurs on the ice, right?
Sure.
Like, there's only so much the models are going to get from what's happened in the past and all those things.
But it's not, totally. But it's not even just that. Like, if you are thinking that these numbers or whatever it is that you're looking at, or even the way the team is playing right now is a reflection of the way this team will look in a few months, then Tortorella failed. Because if you think that in one offseason of a few weeks, a couple tryouts and a few benchings here and there is going to change the culture of the team, You're insane. It is going to take 12 months at least to do that. That's why
it's a day in, day out thing.
But like, that's why Tortorella is not. Yeah, but that's why Tortorella is not talking about this. Like, oh, we're going to be a great. You'll notice, even if we're in first place, he's still going to say we're still a work in progress, guys. He's not going to give you the answers that you think you're going to get. That is not the way this works. That is not a growth mindset. Yeah. You do not think that way. So again, this is a great sign because even when they're not in their peak, they're winning. They should be getting better as the season goes on. Sorry, I cut you off.
And I think no worries. I think one thing to touch on as well is just like newfound resilience is a big thing. Like Tortorella is building up confidence in the teams to the fact that they actually like are able to bounce back from certain situations, show their resilience in certain situations. Like one thing I didn't get to bring up about the previous game against the Blues is, the Blues scored, they're up 3-0, they score, make it 3-1. A lot of the times Flyers of seasons past, they're folding in that situation. The Blues are coming right back. Like you see them be resilient in different ways, and that's very encouraging to the incremental improvement as the season goes on. And it's not even from a top line; it's from a hardworking shift from Sedlak, Cates, and McEwen. They get the forecheck going below the goal line, get the puck up to the point, then they just crash the net, and that's what Torts wants: is hard shifts. And even though one thing goes bad, he's trying to instill the mentality that we're going to make mistakes, things are going to go bad, but the way we're going to play, we need to continue to be aggressive. We need to continue to believe in our games, believe we can be better than the last shift. And that's, I think, what was lacking a lot of the previous seasons. One thing would go wrong, and the Flyers like, well, that's it. We can't come back from it, right? But now it's night and day from that, and I think that's a big kind of insight into what Tortorella is trying to build, and it starts with that, really believing in yourself and kind of improving as you go along and demanding the best out of yourself as a player, and that's obviously the identity that he's kind of going for. Just before we get into comments too, I thought it'd be interesting kind of just to bring up. I mean, It's only 12 games. They're 7-3-2. Still small sample size. Personally, I kind of go by like 25, 20 game mark, and then I'm like, okay, this is what this team's going to kind of be. They're almost inching up to that. 7-3-2. They're in the first wild card spot going into the games coming up here. Do we think they can continue to be competitive as the season moves along here? What do you think, Yariv?
I think health is the problem. They can't afford to lose any more bodies. They're already at like part of the reason that they're doing better is now Tippett is back. Again, we had JVR who was rolling.
He's skating.
We have no idea what's going on with Coots and Atkinson. We can't afford to lose any more bodies. Look, I've said this all the time. I don't agree with anybody about the talent level. I don't care who is saying it. Don't agree, never have agreed, not changing my opinion now. I think there are plenty of players here that you can get more out of them that can be high upper echelon players in the league. I think TK is obviously one of them. Tippett could be one of them. Farabee can be one of them. They're not there yet. We'll see how it manifolds. I think Provorov is entering that stage. I think D'Angelo is on his way up. We'll see Sanheim if he can get his two-way game back to where it was last year. But he has a high-end game. And I don't agree with people who are like, oh, what is he supposed to do on that Tavares move? Stop him. You've stopped players like that all the time. That was awful defense by Sanheim. Sorry, he's much better. He's much better than that.
That's a part of the whole mentality, right? Like
Torch, I don't know what people are talking about though. Like, what is he going to do?
Torch is probably expecting a guy like Sanheim to be like, I can do better, right?
Dude, I would have lit Sanheim up. I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? You let that guy just dangle over you like it was nothing.
Walked you,
Tavares is slow as shit. Look, he's a highly talented player at a monster game. I'm not an asshole. The guy is phenomenal. I love John Tavares, but come on, like every adequate defenseman,
you gotta demand better out of yourself in that point.
Every adequate defenseman, top 3 defenseman in this league, should be able to stop a guy 1-on-1. That was not acceptable, and that's why Risto, what he did was absolutely not acceptable, because after your man got beat, which is understandable to a great player, it's not that I think Sanheim is a bad player. I just think he should have that. Then your partner needs to be there. And I think that's why Risto gets benched. You have to be more reliable. They all do. And I love it. And I think it's absolutely working. And I do think the team's on the way up, man.
I agree. Same thing. I think they can definitely be, stay in these games, be very competitive and be in the mix with a lot of teams that probably a lot of people didn't think they could compete with, quite frankly. And it all stems back to, I really just think, kind of obviously the defensive structure and playing as a 5-man unit, that's the main thing, because we're seeing that improve as the games go along. I think now too, these last 2 games are real crucial, especially for what Tortorella is trying to do, because you're seeing these are these are the games that Torrell's pointing to, saying, see how we played against Ottawa, see how we played against St. Louis. I want that all the time. Yes. I want you guys to be structured in your own zone. I want you guys to support each other defensively as 5-man unit. I want guys back checking, but I also want, you to actually sustain the puck, get into the offensive zone, get those extended zone time shifts, get that aggressive forecheck on the go. You saw they were building their forecheck against Ottawa. It wasn't perfect, and then
they didn't cower.
Yeah, and then it followed up, and
some of the other teams
it followed up and got better against St. Louis. I think it's a work in progress, right? I think the team needs to realize, okay, not every forecheck we sustain, not every shift we get into the zone is going to be a goal, but just get there and try to make some type of plays, and it's gonna wear the team down. And
that's why McEwen is playing so much.
Yeah, you're playing
every shift he does
because he's playing at a really nice pace, and that's what the Flyers are trying to establish. They want to play at a pace that makes it uncomfortable for other teams. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing the Flyers, you better have your legs, because they're going to be skating all over you.
100. Yeah, I love that you just said that.
That's literally what the team needs to do to be successful and be competitive. And we're seeing it happen more, and we're seeing it come out more in their games with these St. Louis, Ottawa wins. So it'll be interesting to see how they follow up against Columbus and then on the back-to-backs this weekend. But I ultimately think, if they can keep this type of structure in their own end and then continue building on their forecheck game, good things are on the horizon. And then the health thing's a big factor too, right? You get a little healthier, it can get a little better for you there. So, things are looking good. As a Flyers fan right now, I'd say, just enjoy the ride. They might not be a playoff team. They might not be one of the best teams in the league, but they're much more interesting to watch, and the games are a lot more engaging to just view altogether, I would say. So people should be excited about that.
I think people also, they gauge talent based off of what other people tell them is talent.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not jumping on anybody and being like, oh, you guys don't know what talent is, but you can see it in front of your face. If you guys are not aware of what's happening, this happens every year. That there are guys who are not talented, and yet Tage Thompson was not talented, right? They all told you he was and then everybody pretends like it's a shocker when these guys break out. Nope, not a shocker.
You know what?
I'll break it for you now. It's never a shocker. It's how it happens all the time. It's actually 80 to 90% of the time. That's the way it operates.
Yeah, it takes a couple of years. It takes a couple of years for a younger guy.
It's not even a couple. It takes 5,
right?
6.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not even 2. It takes the amount that you're uncomfortable. Add time onto that.
The thing is, though, that people need to understand, we've said it a million times, development isn't linear. Yeah, Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, there's all those outliers that come in and they're great and they light it up right away.
They're freaks of nature.
Majority of guys don't do that. Majority of guys are hitting their peak 24, 25, 26. Like a Marchand, who came in the league about 22, 23, struggled a bit, then hit his peak. There's a lot of guys that are like that. Most guys are like that. I just think, be patient. You're going to see some guys develop as we go along, and there's things to look forward to. And like we were saying, this is just the beginning of getting better. It's not what these guys are. There's a lot of unknowns still, a lot of question marks, a lot of John Tortorella's process and strategies still even haven't been played out fully, right? I'm sure there's certain things that he wants to bring forward that's going to help shape the culture he hasn't had a chance to do yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, how that shapes it all, I think.
For sure. All right, let's get into the comments here. No, wrong screen. Cool. Only a couple comments on this last episode. We'll get into this one. You can see my screen, right, Vasili?
Yep, we're all good.
Okay, cool. All right, so top one here by Eric. Eric is always here. Wisniewski. Thank you, Eric, for always chiming in. We got both of your comments here. TK Frost, Allison, Farabee, Hayes, Tippett, or TK, Lawton, Allison. Now, I think the lines have changed a little bit, obviously, since you said that. I think we've already kind of seen that combination. I think it's TK with Hayes, and Tippett is now going to be that line. I would like.
I don't think they're going to break that up.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to break that up. And I don't. The only thing I could see maybe is maybe Frost, if he plays better, gets added into the mix of the top guys. But I don't know. I don't expect too many changes. Do you?
I don't
Not
expect
right now.
Too many changes. The team's rolling, so usually coaches are going to really change the lines up. Maybe when let's say they get a loss in there, then you might see some certain changes. Certain guys, like Tortorella always says, if you're out of the lineup, he wants to give you a chance to kind of get back in there. So that's always a possibility. Personally, the lineups, there's some good chemistry right now, so I don't think we'll see much changes. But though, if you see guys aren't playing engaged like Tortorella wants, then he'll he'll put him in the blender real quick, because that's what he did in Toronto. And then we got this kind of new setup of lines that's kind of carried over into the Ottawa and Blues game. So Tortorella's not afraid to get him in the blender for the lineup. So it'll be interesting. But we could see Frost get some more opportunities because he's playing engaged. So if, let's say somebody else, has a couple of games Torts isn't really feeling, you might see him get moved up. It's totally possible, I think.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I wouldn't look at that now. And you look at that bottom six right now, though, it's like he has Delorier and McEwen mixed up. And then the only thing I could see is like, maybe he switches Sedlak and Frost, but I honestly don't see it happening with the fact Sedlak is.
And I like Sedlak
scoring lately and creating goal. Yeah, I think a lot of people are having a really hard time believing that Sedlak is a good player. He is. He's
pretty good
every single game.
He's like a Swiss Army knife type guy, like not like a Scott Lawton, but like a Lawton, Tyler Pitlick.
Michael Raffle. He's like a Michael Raffle with better wheels.
Like that, yeah.
Better skater than Raffle, but yeah, he's got a lot of like that type of diversity. But he's really, I really believe that. I have no interest in losing Sedlak. I would even consider re-signing him if this is something he does all year.
I would, yeah. I keep Sedlak over Brown 100%.
Well, that's my fourth line center. Like that's what I want, a fourth line center, a guy who's not a kid, who can beat other bottom end players, who can contribute offensively, win faceoffs, can skate. He's kind of doing it all. So I don't love him in the number 3 spot, but I understand why he's kind of keeping this bottom 6 all mixed up. Nobody's really identifying them. And I know people want to elevate Frost. I get it. But again, I go to that point that I made.
He's playing well, though. So.
Yeah, right. But until he gets engaged like that, he will regress because he gets intimidated. And I want to see that stop because he has the skill set. We're all dying to see him take that third line C spot, but I'm hoping it happens soon. And then Jacob P's comment, I'd like to see Tippett, Frost, and TK. I think obviously you're seeing the top line there. I was surprised we didn't see Noah Cates, Frost, and Tippett at any point. But
because they were good last season,
yeah. But at this point, I don't know if we're gonna.
It might happen. You never know. Certain guys start to come back. It's possible. I know Anisimov, he's still on the PTO.
JVR,
yeah. Anisimov's still on the PTO. Apparently, he was practicing with the team. So I wonder if maybe he has a chance of drawing in at some point, or if they give him a contract.
I would imagine that would mean Frost would get benched.
It's possible.
People are not gonna like that.
I just wonder. I mean, at this point, if they weren't going to sign him, why is he still on the PTO? Like, I feel like at some point they're going to give him the contract. It only makes sense.
You might be right. It also just could be, hey, it's a rink to practice at, and
sure,
stay ready. Maybe you get a contract here or there, and it's just a relationship.
Or who knows? Maybe they're keeping around just insurance for another injury.
I think both are situations are possible. I have a hard time believing that with Sedlak here now because I feel like Anisimov.
It was supposed to be the Sedlak.
And I think Sedlak has probably better wheels than Anisimov, but Anisimov's got a pretty good skill set. I don't know. I like Anisimov, so you could be right. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. We needed centers.
Interesting. So. Pretty much.
All right, let's go to Eric's next comment here. Flyers I grew up with would get back-to-back win. Or definitely tie or OT loss. I don't want excuses for this team being tired. Other NHL teams are winning them. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, and I think look, that's why Tortorella is doing what he's doing. He's like, oh, back to back. You want an excuse? He goes, nope, you're benched.
Yeah.
He's doing the exact opposite. He's saying, nope, no excuses.
Also, too, Tortorella said like the team needs to learn how to play back to backs. And I think they're slowly learning. Like the Leafs game was still a loss on the back-to-back, but I think the process was better up until the third period when it just fell apart. So I think it's building blocks. It's a young team. And I think, even when I got some questions in with Torts after, he was kind of saying that, the team started off well. That's how he wants them to play in a sort of a back-to-back, but just got away from them. So I think it's a building process there. And we'll see, this weekend if they learned even more from the last back-to-back and can kind of maybe secure a win on a back-to-back night for the first time this season.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's wrap it up here. Last thing I do want to announce, well, actually, shout out to the sponsor, Jim Steaks on 4th and South. They're still not open. Again, I'll let you guys know when they're back up, but shout out to them after their devastating fire, but I hope that they're open soon. The other thing is we have our meet and greet. This is the first one that we're doing. It. This episode will air on the 10th. The meet and greet is on the 12th. It is before the home game against the Ottawa Senators. We'll be in parking lot H. Rebecca's got the whole thing figured out. There's going to be like giveaway stuff, and we'll just be there hanging out,
grilling and hot dogs and food that Jamie's firing up. So I'm kind of jealous, man. I don't get to have any.
Yeah, we'll have a good amount of the Flyers. Yeah, it's a shame you can't be there, Vasili, but we'll have a good amount of the crew there. I'll be there, obviously, and just come say hi. I mean, that's really all it's about. It's just come say hi, and again, it's all Rebecca's brainchild, so we thank her.
Yeah, if you have any questions for us, like give them to Yariv when you're there. We'll talk about them on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to. If you guys do listen and you guys would be there, I'd love to hear from you and see you in person. It's an honor that anybody listens to us, so it's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, we appreciate you guys. You guys are the best.
Yeah, it's so. Actually, I was listening to other podcasts. I was so frustrated listening to other people. I was like texting Vasili, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad we have a podcast because like I need to vent. I can't just like sit at home like pacing back and forth, yelling at my phone, going like, like what are you talking about? Anyway. All right, so you got anything you want people to be aware of?
So as you guys are listening to this today, there will be an article paired with it as well. I'm going to kind of go into Tortorella's coaching strategies, kind of what we talked about here, how it's affecting the team in a positive manner and how that should hopefully affect them positively going forward. So check that one out. And then I'm also planning to get another article out likely on Friday morning after the Columbus game Thursday and kind of wrap up the last kind of 3 games or so and kind of just see and kind of pinpoint like what I'm seeing on the ice just from like a strategy structure perspective. So try to check that, guys, out if you have free time, and really appreciate that. There goes my phone, but that's okay.
You don't need it.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, buddy. And thank you again, everybody, for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, check out our team store again. Check out the meet and greet. Follow myself and Vasili on Twitter or what else. Leave us comments, subscribe, the likes, the whole thing. It's all super helpful. We really appreciate it. Now the Phillies are out of the World Series, and we're a little, unfortunately, it's a little bit sad, but we're now fully into Flyer season with the Eagles still going, the Sixers still going, and the Eagles killing it right now. But the Flyers are doing pretty well, so it's cool. It's pretty cool. So thank you again, everybody, for listening. We love you, and remember, always stay pretty.